Let's begin today's show with some news. The Saints have officially hired, as long expected, Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore as their next head coach. Kellen, I think part of the big selling point is he had an Eagles run with an offense that was mostly led by Saquon Barkley in terms of like being at the top of the NFL leaderboard in rushing. And with the Cowboys, he said, been among the NFL's best passing offenses. Saints job's tough, though. That team is probably due for an actual rebuild and not trying to push all their chips in on the Derek Carr contract. So we'll see what they elect to do, because there will be an adjustment period for Kellen as head coach for the first time as well. So grade this hire, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's move now to Aaron Rodgers and his future. Jay Glazer, Fox Sports, breaking the news Sunday, Super Bowl morning, or I guess afternoon, that the Jets are going to move on from Rodgers this offseason, which shouldn't really be a huge surprise. Mention a team that's in need of a rebuild. That's New York. 2024 campaign and 2022 campaign, they were not prime Aaron Rodgers. It was not, this guy's a borderline MVP. This guy might win MVP. This guy's a top 5 quarterback. He was like maybe the 20th best QB this year. Maybe. And that might be pushing it a little bit, frankly. And that's a concern as teams move forward. I think there will be some interest in Aaron Rodgers. We will discuss some teams that I think make some sense, but it's not going to be as impressive of a market as it would have been 3 years ago. It's just not. By the way, Rodgers is 41 years old and turns 42 in December. That's old for a QB, for any NFL player. Now, I will say this. The contract matters in these conversations. Rodgers is due a $35 million option bonus before the season. That's not a date paid out in March, just at some point before the regular season. He's got $2.5 million in base salary. So the total cash for the final year of his contract is $37.5 million. Now, the cap hit would only be $9.5. That option bonus is spaced out over up to 5 years, and there are 4 void years left on his contract, so they get the full maximum salary cap spreading, but it also leaves $28 million in dead money in 2026. So that's a lot of money. And I think at that contract cost, I don't think any team will, nor do I think any team should have interest in trading for Aaron Rodgers. That's too much money for 1 year of a quarterback that at this point, it is safe to say he's on the decline. Doesn't mean he won't get a decent contract on a 1 year, maybe incentive-based more than anything. But unless he wants to totally restructure that contract and take a pay cut, which he can just go to free agency at that point and pick his destination instead of, being traded somewhere, I think that makes more sense. So it's not who will trade for Aaron Rodgers, but where will he play, if anywhere, in the NFL in 2025? Let me know in the pinned comments of today's show. The ad comes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Let's briefly mention some top destinations here. Number 5 for me, because you have to mention it, the Minnesota Vikings. It's complete the Brett Favre arc, right? It makes a little bit of sense in the event that Sam Darnold is moved on from in some capacity by Minnesota, but they also maybe just give the reins to J.J. McCarthy. I don't know how much Rodgers wants to be a mentor to somebody. Number 4, the New York Football Giants. Doesn't have to move. Gets to stay in the area. And for a team that's desperate, like the Giants are, going out and acquiring a veteran QB to try to win now and save your jobs might make sense for them, actually. The Raiders at number 3, they are in desperate need of a quarterback. I think that certainly makes some sense. And I don't know how well or how poorly Rodgers get along with Pete Carroll, but worth mentioning there. The Titans, Rodgers has landed in Nashville, was linked pretty heavily the last time he was available in the open market. And if they don't want to take a QB in round 1, they could trade down and give them some semblance of stability. And the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 1, because there's some uncertainty there about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And it also is worth mentioning on some of the betting odds out there, Pittsburgh, the number 1 destination for Rodgers. Raiders at 2. I don't buy the Niners at plus 350. I think that's a sucker's bet based on some previous buzz in years past. I think it's far more than they ended up paying Brock Purdy. Minnesota, plus 400. Tennessee, a plus 700. I think that's actually pretty decent value. Today's show is made possible by Z-Biotics. They are the inventors of the first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. The pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Remember to drink it before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. I am no longer the same young, spry chicken I once was. I am up there in age, and I can't hang the same way I used to. That's why I find ZBiotics incredibly helpful these days. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports or scan the QR code on screen to get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. You can get a subscription using the code so you can stay prepared for the time or the occasion. They're backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off your order. A big thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Let's stick with the quarterback buzz here. Adam Schefter linking the Raiders as a potential top destination for Sam Darnold this offseason. And the Darnold free agency intrigue, I think, will be among the better ones in the NFL because he played very well this year. Franchise tag's expensive. Minnesota spent a first-round pick on a QB this year. Maybe he's on the open market. Maybe they work out a tag and trade, which we don't see that often, especially these days. Makes it interesting for a free agency class that's maybe not the best. Here's what Shefty said. One team that I would watch with Sam Darnold moving forward would be the Las Vegas Raiders. I think at some point in time, they're going to have some interest trying to bring Sam Darnold to Las Vegas. We'll see if they can make that happen. So Darnold will command probably sizable interest in the open market this offseason. Where do you think he'll end up playing in 2025? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Now, let's talk about the Raiders here specifically. And no disrespect intended towards Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. They're not long-term answers. They've never been long-term answers. They're stopgaps. They're backups at best. Darnold would be a big, but frankly expensive addition and upgrade, though, at the quarterback spot. I think Darnold would fit in the more modern Chip Kelly offense. He is not the same guy that was with Philadelphia that just ran tempo nonstop and one of the mobile QB at Oregon. He has very much adjusted his game planning. And I give him credit for that, too, by the way. But the Raiders have the money. They got $92.5 million in projected salary cap space. If they want to, they can make it work. But the Vikings have a control piece here, a point of ability to control the Darnold future, the franchise tag. Now, that projected number per over the cap is $41 million. That's a lot of money for 1 year of a quarterback, and you don't get any ability to be creative with how you structure that contract. Now, the Vikings have J.J. McCarthy. I believe they're very high still on McCarthy, and I think there had even been buzz pre-injury. He might have won that starting job. Ended up working out great in the end for Minnesota. Can they work out a tag and trade? The danger is if you tag him and he signs it and they can't find a trade partner, now you're stuck holding the bag. So it might be more of a collaborative effort between the Vikings and Darnold, or they let him walk and get that third-round comp pick. We'll see. More on Darnold to come, but if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Free NFL videos each and every single day, plus NBA and more. Well, it's quite the turnaround for Sam Darnold, who he was not good in Carolina. He wasn't. He really struggled. And he didn't really play very much at all in San Francisco. And then you finally kind of saw some of the upside, the talent, the perceived talent that we all thought, at least what people thought, he had coming out of USC this past year for the Minnesota Vikings. He played well. Now, he did have some issues down the stretch. In particular, he took way too many sacks. And sacks don't show up in the interception stat sheet. They don't show up in the completion percentage. They don't show up in the yards. But those were drive killers. And those were big issues for the Vikings and Darnold down the stretch this season. In the end, I do think Darnold gets a pretty massive contract. That Baker Mayfield deal is completely doable and adjusted for salary cap inflation. And now we're talking he's going to get at least $35 million a year on a multi-year deal. And it could easily be $40 million or more. It could get out of control because the supply and demand favors Darnold. The quarterback class is regarded as not a great one. There are real concerns there. And beyond that, there's not a lot of good free agents options either. And there are QB-needy teams. The Jets are obviously not going to be an option for him. But the Raiders, the Giants, Browns maybe, the Titans, the Vikings themselves, there's going to be interest in Sam Darnold. And it could be a surprisingly large contract. And if you want to get really crazy with it, you could always see a crazy Rams trade Matthew Stafford and bring in Sam Darnold if you want to get a really wild idea out there.